The red lights flashed across the control room of Kepler-7's space station. Commander Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the screens again. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Lisa, come look at this," he called to Dr. Lisa Hamilton, who was working at the language computer nearby. Lisa walked over and stared at the strange signal on the screen. The patterns looked different from anything they had seen before. The signal was coming from far away. Very far away. From another galaxy called Andromeda. "This is not normal space noise," Lisa said quietly. "This looks like someone is trying to talk to us." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years working on the deep space station, they had never received a real message from aliens. The signal was strong and clear, but the patterns were completely unknown. "Get Danny and Pete in here right now," Jake ordered. Lieutenant Danny Brooks ran into the room first. He was young but very good with computers and space signals. Engineer Pete Johnson came in behind him, wiping oil from his hands. "What do we have, Don?" Danny asked, looking at the screens. "A signal from Andromeda Galaxy," Jake replied. "Lisa thinks it might be a real message." Pete whistled softly. "Andromeda is really far away. If someone sent a signal from there, they must be using very powerful technology." Lisa was already working on her translation computers. She had spent years learning how to understand alien languages, but this was her first real test. The signal had patterns that repeated over and over. Some parts seemed like numbers. Other parts looked like pictures. "I need more time to study this," Lisa said, "but I think someone is asking for help." Jake called Earth immediately. The message would take hours to reach them, but this was too important to wait. While they waited for orders, the team worked day and night on the signal. Danny found something amazing. The signal was not just sent to Earth, it was sent to many different places in space. Hundreds of different star systems had received the same message. "They sent this everywhere," Danny said, showing his findings to the team. "To every place where smart life might exist." "But why are we the only ones answering?" Pete asked. That question made everyone quiet. If hundreds of alien civilizations had received this message, why was Earth the only planet trying to understand it? After 3 days of hard work, Lisa finally broke through the alien language. Her hands shook as she read the translation on her screen. "Jake, you need to see this right now," she called. The team gathered around Lisa's computer. The message appeared. In English on the screen, "We are the Veltar Empire. We have ruled 14 star systems for thousands of years. Now we are dying. A terrible plague called the Gray Death is destroying our worlds. It turns everything into gray crystal. We cannot stop it. Our planets are becoming lifeless rocks. Only our homeworld Xerion Prime still has life, but not for long. We have sent this message to all intelligent species we know about. Please, if anyone receives this, help us. We do not want our civilization to die forgotten. Time is running out." The message continued with detailed information about their location, their technology, and their culture. It included star maps showing exactly where their homeworld was located. 200 million people, Pete said quietly, reading the population numbers. 200 million aliens are going to die, and we're the only ones who care. Jake stared at the message for a long time. The Veltar had sent their cry for help to hundreds of worlds, advanced civilizations that had been exploring space for thousands of years, but none of them answered. Only humans who had only been in space for a few hundred years bothered to respond. "Why us?" Danny asked. "Why are humans the only ones who want to help?" "Maybe because we're still young," Lisa suggested. "Maybe when civilizations get old, they stop caring about others." Jake thought about human history. Humans had always tried to help during disasters. When earthquakes hit other countries, humans sent aid. When people were trapped, humans tried to rescue them. Even when it was dangerous or expensive, humans usually tried to help strangers. "The message says they studied us," Lisa continued, reading more of the translation. "They learned about humans by listening to our radio signals. They hoped we would be different from other species." The answer from Earth came back faster than expected. The United Earth Council was having emergency meetings. Some leaders wanted to ignore the message. They said it was too dangerous to travel to another galaxy. Others said humans had no responsibility to help aliens they had never met. But other leaders disagreed. They said this was humanity's chance to prove they were good neighbors in the universe. If humans ignored this cry for help, they would be no better than all the other species who turned away. The debates on Earth lasted for days. Jake and his team kept studying the Veltar message, learning more about their culture and their situation. The aliens seemed peaceful. They loved learning and exploring. They had never fought wars to conquer other planets. They reminded Jake of the best parts of humanity. Finally, Earth made its decision. President Laura Chen appeared on the communication screen in the station. "Commander Morrison," she said seriously, "the United Earth Council has voted. We will attempt a rescue mission to save the Veltar people. We cannot let an entire civilization die when we have the power to help." Jake felt proud of his species. Even though the mission would be incredibly dangerous and expensive, humanity chose to help. They chose to be different from all the other advanced species in the universe who ignored the Veltar's plea. "We're really going to do this," Pete said, amazement in his voice. "Prepare the fastest ship we have," President Chen continued. "Choose your best crew. This will be the most important mission in human history. We're not just trying to save aliens. We're trying to show the universe what humanity stands for." Jake looked at his team. Lisa was already working on better translation programs. Danny was calculating the best route to Andromeda Galaxy. Pete was designing equipment they might need for the rescue. For the first time in the history of the universe, one species was traveling to another galaxy just to help strangers. The Veltar had sent their signal hoping someone would care. They found the one species in the universe that still remembered how to be kind. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, looking out at the stars. This was the biggest and most advanced ship humanity had ever built. It had taken 6 months to prepare for this impossible journey to save the Veltar people. "How long until we reach Andromeda Galaxy?" she asked her navigation officer. 2 years, Captain," Lieutenant Kelly Wright replied. "Even with our new fold space engines, it's the longest trip any human has ever taken." Maria nodded. 2 years to cross the space between galaxies. 2 years while the Veltar people waited and hoped someone was coming to help them. Her crew was the best humanity could offer. Pete Johnson had become the chief engineer, working to keep their experimental engines running smoothly. Colonel Ryan Clark commanded the Marines who would handle any dangerous situations they might find. Dr. Amy Foster was their expert on talking with alien cultures. "Kelly, try to contact Zarian Prime again," Maria ordered. Kelly worked at her communication station. After several minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It was translated by their computers, but they could hear sadness in the alien words. "This is Zarian Prime. We are grateful that humans are coming to help us, but we must warn you. The situation grows worse every day." The voice belonged to someone called Prime Scholar Zethkri. He was the leader of the remaining Veltar people. Through many conversations during their journey, the humans learned about Veltar culture and the terrible plague destroying their worlds. Dr. Amy Foster had studied every piece of information the Veltar sent. She learned that they were gentle people who loved knowledge and peace. They had never fought wars like humans did. Instead, they explored space to learn about other cultures and share discoveries. "The Gray Death moves faster now," Zethkri's voice continued through the radio. "We have lost 3 more cities this week. The crystal spreads across our land like poison. Everything it touches dies and becomes gray stone." Pete looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, our engines are working perfectly, but even at our fastest speed, we still need 18 more months to reach them." Maria felt frustrated. Every day they traveled through space. More Veltar. People died. But there was no way to make their ship go faster. The fold space engines were already pushing the limits of human technology. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, their medical officer, spent her time studying Veltar biology. The aliens had sent detailed information about their bodies so the humans could help them if they arrived in time. "They're not so different from us," Helen reported during a team meeting. "They breathe similar air and eat similar food. The main difference is they live much longer than humans. Some Veltar are over 500 years old." Colonel Clark was planning rescue operations. "If we can get there in time, how do we save 200 million people?" We only have one ship. The Veltar have ships too, Amy reminded him. But their technology is different from ours. They focused on learning and exploration, not on building big rescue ships. As months passed, the crew learned more disturbing news. Kelly discovered that the Grey Death was not a natural disease. It was actually a weapon created by an ancient species called the Devourers. The Devourers were destroyed 3,000 years ago, Kelly explained, reading the historical data the Veltar had sent. But before they died, they created this terrible plague as revenge. They sent it out into space to kill their enemies slowly. Why is it attacking the Veltar now? Maria asked. Amy found the answer in the cultural files. The Veltar were part of a group of species that defeated the Devourers long ago. The plague was programmed to find and destroy all the species that fought against the Devourers. Pete shook his head. So the Veltar are being punished for something their ancestors did thousands of years ago, and they never knew this revenge was coming, Helen added sadly. The most shocking discovery came from Danny, who was still monitoring space communications back on Kepler-7 station. He sent a message that made everyone angry. Captain, I've been checking on the other species that received the Veltar's call for help. I found communications between several advanced civilizations. They all decided not to help because it was too dangerous and expensive. Some of them even discussed whether the Veltar deserved to be saved. Maria felt disgusted. These advanced species had the technology to help, but they chose to let an entire civilization die rather than risk anything for strangers. How can they be so cold? Ryan asked angrily. These are living people asking for help. Maybe that's why the Veltar specifically hoped humans would respond, Amy suggested. They studied our history. They saw that humans try to help during disasters, even when it's dangerous. As they traveled deeper into space, they began to see evidence of the Grey Death's destruction. Dead solar systems with planets covered in gray crystal. Abandoned space stations floating empty. The remains of ships that had tried to escape but been caught by the spreading plague. This is horrible, Kelly whispered, looking at the images on their screens. Entire worlds turned to stone. Maria knew their mission was more important than ever. If they failed, the Grey Death might continue, spreading to other parts of the galaxy. The Veltar were not just asking humans to save them. They were asking humans to stop a weapon that could kill millions more. With 6 months left in their journey, they received bad news from Xerion Prime. The Grey Death had reached the planet's main cities. Half the population had already died, or been evacuated to underground shelters. We may not have 200 million people left to save when you arrive. Zethkri's voice was full of despair. Perhaps we waited too long to call for help. Don't give up, Maria replied. Humans never give up. We will find a way to save your people. But privately, Maria worried they might arrive to find nothing but another gray crystal world. The Veltar had sent their signal hoping for help, and humans had answered. But would they arrive in time? Pete worked harder on the engines, trying to squeeze more speed from their systems. Helen prepared medical supplies for millions of refugees. Ryan planned rescue operations for different scenarios. Amy practiced Veltar language so she could communicate better when they arrived. The crew of the Horizon knew they were racing against time. Somewhere ahead in the darkness, an ancient civilization was dying while humanity's first rescue ship crossed the space between galaxies. Maria looked at the stars and made a promise. We're coming. Just hold on a little longer. The UES Horizon came out of fold space near Xerion Prime, and Captain Maria Santos gasped at what she saw. Half the planet was covered in gray crystal formations that sparkled coldly in the light of the system's twin suns. The other half still showed green and blue colors where the Veltar people lived, but gray lines were spreading across those areas too. My God, whispered Dr. Helen Rodriguez, staring at the main screen. It's worse than we imagined. Kelly Wright was already trying to contact the planet. After a few minutes, a familiar voice answered. Prime Scholar Zethkri sounded very tired, but there was joy in his translated words. Humans, you actually came. We have been waiting and hoping for so long. Many of my people thought no one would really travel so far to help strangers. Captain Santos stepped forward. We're here now. How many of your people are still alive? About 150 million, Zethkri replied. We lost many during the 2 years you were traveling to us. The Grey Death moves faster now. We estimate we have only weeks before it covers our entire world. Dr. Amy Foster took over the communications. She had spent 2 years learning Veltar language and culture. Prime Scholar, we need to meet with you and your leaders immediately. We want to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Of course. But please be careful. When you land, the Grey Death crystals are spreading even into our safe areas now. Colonel Ryan Clark prepared a small team to go down to the planet's surface. Maria, Amy, Helen, and linguistics expert Dr. Kevin White would make first contact while the others stayed on the ship to study the situation. The shuttle landed in what had been Zarian Prime's largest city. Now it was mostly empty except for the areas where the remaining Veltar had built underground shelters. The buildings above ground were partly covered in gray crystal that looked like frozen glass. Prime Scholar Zethkri met them at the landing site. The humans were surprised by how the Veltar looked. They were taller than humans with long arms and large eyes that showed intelligence and kindness. Their skin was pale blue, and they moved gracefully despite their sadness. You are smaller than we expected, Zethkri said through their translation devices. But you came such a long way to help us. We are grateful beyond words. Amy bowed respectfully, which she had learned was proper Veltar manners. We are honored to meet you, Prime Scholar. Humans believe that all intelligent life has value. We could not ignore your call for help. Zethkri led them underground to see where the remaining Veltar people lived. The tunnels were crowded but clean. Families stayed together in small spaces, sharing food and taking care of children. Despite their terrible situation, they remained calm and kind to each other. Your people are very brave, Helen observed, watching how peacefully the Veltar accepted their situation. We have learned patience over thousands of years, Zethkri explained. But patience cannot stop the Grey Death. Come, let me show you what we are fighting. They went to an observation room where Veltar scientists were studying the plague. Dr. Kevin White worked with the alien scientists to understand their research. What they learned was both fascinating and terrifying. The Grey Death is not really alive, explained a Veltar scientist named Mordek. It is a self-copying crystal that changes organic matter into more crystal. It was designed by the Devourers as the perfect weapon. Helen studied samples of the gray crystal under a microscope. It's incredibly complex. The crystal structure contains information, like a computer program that tells it how to spread and what to attack. We have tried everything to stop it, Mordek continued sadly. We used heat, cold, acid, radiation. Nothing works. The crystal just adapts and continues growing. Amy was learning more about why only humans had responded to the Veltar's call for help. Prime Scholar, you said you specifically hoped humans would answer your message. Why? Zethkri's large eyes looked directly at her. We have been listening to human radio signals for many years. We studied your history and your culture. We learned that humans do something most advanced species stop doing. What do you mean? Maria asked. You help strangers, Zethkri replied simply. When disasters happen on your world, humans travel great distances to rescue people they have never met. You risk your lives for others. Most species grow out of this behavior as they become advanced. They become focused only on their own safety and success. Kevin had been talking with other Veltar historians. He reported back to the group with disturbing news. Captain, they've shown me communication records from other civilizations that received their distress signal. The responses are not good. What kind of responses? Maria asked. The Zephyrians said the Veltar brought this on themselves by fighting the Devourers. The Crystalline Collective decided it was not cost-effective to mount a rescue mission. The hive minds voted that interfering with natural selection was morally wrong. Amy felt sick. They had excuses for letting an entire civilization die. But the worst was the Eternal Empire, Kevin continued. They actually said the galaxy would be better off with fewer species competing for resources. Colonel Clark's voice came through their communicators from the ship above. "Captain, we're detecting something unusual. There are several alien ships at the edge of the solar system, but they're not coming closer. They seem to be just watching." Maria felt angry. "Let me guess. Those are ships from the species that refuse to help. They're here to see what happens." Zethkri confirmed her suspicion. "Yes, they want to study how the Grey Death works so they can protect themselves if it ever threatens them. But they will not help us." That evening, the human team met with Veltar, leaders to discuss options. The situation looked hopeless. The Grey Death was spreading too fast and they had no way to stop it. Even if they loaded every Veltar onto human ships, they could only save a small number of people. But Pete Johnson, monitoring from the ship, had been studying the Grey Death crystals and had an idea. His voice came through their communicators, with excitement. "Captain, I think I found something important. The Grey Death needs specific minerals to spread. It's very picky about what elements it can use to build new crystal." "What kind of minerals?" Helen asked. "Common ones found on most planets: silicon, carbon, iron, magnesium. But here's the interesting part. These minerals are very rare on Earth. Our planet has a completely different composition." Maria began to understand. "Are you saying the Grey Death can't spread on Earth?" "Exactly, and not just Earth. Several human colony worlds have similar mineral compositions. The Grey Death would starve on those planets." For the first time since arriving, Zethkri's expression showed hope. "Are you suggesting we could live on human worlds?" Amy smiled. "Prime Scholar, we didn't come here just to watch your people die. We came here to save you, all of you." The idea was crazy, moving 150 million people across intergalactic space. But as they discussed it through the night, it began to seem possible. Difficult, expensive, and dangerous, but possible. "This has never been attempted before," Zethkri said quietly. "No species has ever tried to relocate an entire civilization." Maria stood up and looked at the Veltar leaders. "Then we'll be the first. Humans specialize in doing things that have never been done before." Outside, the Grey Death continued spreading across Zirion Prime. But for the first time in years, the Veltar people had real hope. Someone had come to help them, and that someone refused to give up. Captain Maria Santos looked at the massive problem in front of her. 150 million Veltar people needed to be moved across intergalactic space before the Grey Death killed them all. Her single ship could only carry about 50,000 people at most. They needed a miracle. "Pete, how long do we have?" she asked her chief engineer. Pete Johnson studied the crystal growth patterns on his computer. "The Grey Death is spreading faster now that it has more material to convert. I estimate 3 weeks before it reaches the last safe areas on Zirion Prime. 3 weeks to save an entire civilization. It seemed impossible, but Maria had learned that humans were good at making impossible things happen. Colonel Ryan Clark was already working on evacuation plans with the Veltar engineers. "Their ships are different from ours, but they can carry people. The problem is they don't have fold space engines. Their ships are built for exploration, not long-distance escape." Dr. Amy Foster had been meeting with Veltar leaders all week. "They have about 2,000 ships that could carry people, but most are small research vessels. Without fold space technology, it would take them hundreds of years to reach human space. Then we make their ships faster," Pete said simply. "We adapt our fold space engines to work on their ships." Dr. Helen Rodriguez looked concerned. "Pete, our engines are designed specifically for human ships. The power systems are completely different." "Everything is different," Pete agreed. "But that doesn't mean it can't work. Humans are good at making things work together that were never designed to go together." Maria made a decision that surprised everyone. "We're not leaving anyone behind. Contact Earth immediately. Tell them we need every available ship sent to Andromeda Galaxy right now." "Captain," Amy said carefully, "that would take 2 years for ships from Earth to get here." "I know. But we're going to save these people in groups. The first group comes with us immediately. The rest wait for more ships while we set up safe places for them in human space." Prime Scholar Zethkri joined their meeting. He had been listening to the translation of their conversation. Captain Santos, your plan requires enormous resources. Why would humans spend so much to save people you barely know? Maria looked directly at the tall alien leader. Because it's the right thing to do, and because humans believe the galaxy is a better place when civilizations help each other instead of just watching each other die. The work began immediately. Pete and Veltar engineer Kethmore worked together to modify fold space engines for alien ships. It was incredibly difficult, because the technologies were so different, but both species learned from each other. Human engines use controlled explosions for power, Kethmore explained to Pete. Veltar ships use harmonic energy fields. They should not work together. Should not and cannot are different things, Pete replied, pulling apart an engine component. Let's find out what happens when we combine them. Meanwhile, Colonel Clark organized the evacuation priorities. Families with children went first, then elderly Veltar, then essential people like doctors and teachers. The Veltar were amazed by how carefully humans planned to save lives. In our culture, leaders and important people would evacuate first, Zethkri told Amy. But humans put children and helpless people first. This is very unusual. Dr. Kevin White was working with Veltar historians to preserve their culture and knowledge. We can't just save your people, he explained. We need to save your books, your art, your music, everything that makes Veltar civilization special. You would save our culture too? Asked Mordek, the Veltar scientist. Most species only care about saving lives. Lives without culture are just existence, Kevin replied. We want you to remain Veltar, not just become refugees who live on human worlds. The first breakthrough came when Pete and Kethmore successfully connected a human fold space engine to a Veltar ship. The test was dangerous because nobody knew if the combination would work or explode. Activating hybrid engine in 3, 2, 1, Pete announced. The Veltar ship disappeared for a few seconds, then reappeared several thousand miles away. Both species cheered as they realized the modification worked. It uses more power than normal, Kethmore reported. But it works. We can make their ships travel at fold space speeds. With working faster than light travel, the real evacuation could begin. But there was another problem. Dr. Helen Rodriguez discovered that humans and Veltar needed different things to survive during long space trips. Their air needs more humidity, she explained to the engineering teams. And their food requires different nutrients. We need to modify our life support systems. Also, Veltar sleep differently than humans, Amy added. They need periods of complete darkness and silence. Our ships are too bright and noisy for them. Both species worked together to solve these problems. Humans learned Veltar techniques for creating peaceful sleeping environments. Veltar learned human methods for recycling air and water efficiently. Every day brought new challenges, but every day brought new solutions. The alien ships watching from the edge of the solar system were amazed by what they saw. The Zephyrian observer sent a message to his government. The humans are actually doing it. They are moving an entire civilization. This should be impossible. The Crystalline Collective Observer reported, human efficiency is remarkable. They solve problems through cooperation instead of competition. This is inefficient by our calculations, but somehow it works. As the first group of Veltar prepared to leave Xerion Prime, emotions were high. Families were being separated. Ancient homes were being abandoned forever. But there was also hope. We never thought we would see the stars again, said an elderly Veltar named Yeshta as she boarded a modified evacuation ship. We thought we would die here watching our world turn to crystal. Maria stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching. The small fleet of ships prepare for the journey to human space. 50,000 Veltar were about to begin a new life, while the rest waited for rescue. Commander Jake Morrison's voice came through from Kepler 7 station, where he was coordinating the massive operation. Captain, Earth has approved sending 30 more ships to help with the evacuation. They're also preparing 3 colony worlds to receive Veltar refugees. How long for the additional ships to arrive? Maria asked. 18 months. Can the remaining Veltar hold out that long? Maria looked at the crystal formations spreading across Xerion Prime's surface. We're going to make sure they can. Pete, Kethmore, how many more ships can we modify before we leave? Perhaps 50 ships, Pete replied. Enough for another 100,000 people. Then let's get to work. We're not leaving this system until we know everyone has a way out. Prime Scholar Zethkri approached Maria as she supervised the loading of the first evacuation ships. Captain Santos, I have been thinking about what this means. Humans are saving us, but you are also changing the entire galaxy. What do you mean? Other species are watching. They see that cooperation works better than isolation. They see that helping strangers makes you stronger, not weaker. They are beginning to question their own choices. Maria smiled. Good. Maybe next time someone calls for help, more species will answer. The first group of Veltar ships activated their modified fold space engines and disappeared into the darkness between galaxies. They carried people who had given up hope, now traveling toward safety in human space. Behind them, the gray death continued spreading across Zarian Prime. But, for the first time in years, it was losing the race. 8 months later, Captain Maria Santos stood on the observation deck of New Eden Colony, watching Veltar children play with human children in the gardens below. The evacuation of Zarian Prime had taken longer than planned, but they had done it. All 148 million surviving Veltar now lived safely in human space. The last transport ships arrived this morning, reported Colonel Ryan Clark, joining her at the window. That's everyone. We actually saved them all. Maria smiled, but she looked tired. The rescue operation had been the most difficult thing humanity had ever attempted. They had used every available ship, spent enormous amounts of money, and worked around the clock for months. But they had refused to give up. Dr. Amy Foster walked up with a data pad full of reports. The integration is going better than expected. The Veltar have settled on 3 worlds, New Eden, Haven's Rest, and Terra Nova 2. They're already sharing their technology with human scientists. What kind of technology? Maria asked. Advanced energy systems, new materials, science, and something called harmonic medicine. Dr. Rodriguez says Veltar healing techniques could help humans live longer and healthier lives. The cooperation between the 2 species had surprised everyone. Instead of remaining separate, humans and Veltar were working together in ways that benefited both civilizations. Human engineering combined with Veltar scientific knowledge was creating incredible innovations. Pete Johnson had become famous across human space for his work adapting alien technology. His hybrid engines were now being installed on human ships, making them faster and more efficient. The Veltar taught us that space travel doesn't have to be violent and explosive, he explained in interviews. Their harmonic approach is much gentler on both ships and passengers. Dr. Kevin White had helped establish the cultural exchange centers on all 3 colony worlds. Veltar artists were teaching humans about their music and philosophy, while human teachers shared literature and history with alien students. It's amazing how much we have in common, Kevin reported to Maria. Both species love learning, creating, and exploring. The main difference is that Veltar think in much longer time periods than humans do. Prime Scholar Zethkri had become something like an ambassador between the species. He spent his time traveling between the colonies, making sure his people were adapting well to their new homes. Today he was visiting New Eden to meet with human leaders. Captain Santos, he said as he approached the observation deck, I wanted to thank you again for everything humans have done for my people. You don't need to keep thanking us, Maria replied. We're neighbors now. Neighbors help each other. Zethkri's large eyes showed emotion that the translation computers couldn't capture. You say that so simply, but what you did was extraordinary. No species in galactic history has ever attempted such a rescue mission. Amy had been studying galactic politics since the evacuation ended. Speaking of other species, we've been receiving some interesting communications lately. What kind of communications? Maria asked. Apologies mostly. The Zephyrian Republic sent a formal message admitting they made a mistake by not helping the Veltar. The Crystalline Collective wants to establish trade agreements with both humans and Veltar. Even the Eternal Empire is asking to meet with our diplomats. Colonel Clark laughed. They ignored the Veltar when they were dying, but now they want to be friends because we succeeded. It's more than that, Amy continued. Our rescue mission changed how the entire galaxy thinks about cooperation. Species that had been isolated for thousands of years are starting to work together again. This was true. The Human-Veltar alliance had become a model for other civilizations. When the Kelthani faced environmental disasters, 3 different species offered to help instead of leaving them to solve it alone. When the Rigel Confederation discovered a new form of space plague, multiple governments shared their research instead of keeping it secret. Dr. Helen Rodriguez had been studying the long-term effects of the rescue mission. What we did wasn't just about saving the Veltar, she reported to the Leadership Council. We proved that advanced civilizations can care about more than just their own survival. The most significant change was in how species communicated with each other. Before the Veltar rescue, most advanced civilizations sent only formal diplomatic messages. Now they were sharing scientific discoveries, cultural exchanges, and even entertainment programs. The galaxy feels more connected than it has in thousands of years, observed Dr. Kevin White. Species are remembering how to be friends instead of just neighbors who ignore each other. 1 year after the evacuation, Maria received a communication that made her pause. It was from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Kepler 7, where the whole adventure had begun. Commander Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Captain, we've received another distress signal. This one is from the Triangulum Galaxy, even farther away than Andromeda. Another dying civilization? Maria asked. Yes, but this time it's different. The signal isn't just asking for help. It's specifically asking for humans to help. Word about the Veltar rescue has spread across multiple galaxies. Maria felt the familiar excitement of a new challenge. How many people need to be saved this time? About 50 million. A species called the HFY. Their star is going supernova, and they don't have the technology to evacuate their planet. Amy looked interested. Triangulum Galaxy is 3 times farther than Andromeda. The journey would take at least 5 years. But we have Veltar technology now, Pete pointed out through the communication system. Their harmonic engines combined with our fold space drives could cut that time in half. Prime Scholar Zethkri had been listening to the conversation. Captain Santos, if you decide to attempt another rescue mission, the Veltar people would like to help. We have ships, technology, and experience with long-distance relocations. Maria looked around at her friends and colleagues. The first rescue mission had been humanity acting alone. This time they wouldn't be alone. The Zephyrian Republic has already contacted us, Amy added. They want to contribute ships to the rescue fleet. So do the Crystalline Collective and 4 other species. Colonel Clark smiled. Looks like we started something bigger than just rescuing the Veltar. That evening, Maria stood again at the observation window, watching human and Veltar families share dinner in the colony's common areas. Children of both species played together, learning each other's languages and games. Adults worked on joint projects that benefited everyone. She thought about the signal that had started it all. The Veltar had sent their cry for help to hundreds of species, expecting no response. They had found the one species in the universe that still remembered how to be kind to strangers. Now that kindness was spreading. Species across multiple galaxies were relearning how to help each other instead of just protecting themselves. The Veltar's desperate signal had not just saved their civilization, it had changed the entire universe. Kethmore Vash humanity, Zethkri said quietly, joining her at the window. The phrase had become famous across the galaxy. It meant forever bound to humanity in the Veltar language. What does that really mean? Maria asked. Zethkri looked at the mixed families below. It means that some bonds are stronger than species, stronger than distance, stronger than time. It means that when people choose to help strangers, they create something beautiful that lasts forever. Maria nodded. Tomorrow she would begin planning humanity's second impossible rescue mission. This time, they wouldn't be going alone. They would be leading a fleet of species who had remembered what it meant to care about others. The dying Veltar Empire had sent a signal asking for help. Only humans had responded. Now the entire galaxy was learning to respond when others called for help. Sometimes the youngest species could teach the oldest ones what it truly meant to be civilized. In the distance, Stars twinkled with the promise of new adventures and new civilizations to save. Humanity was no longer alone in caring about strangers. They had started a revolution of kindness that would spread across the universe for generations to come.